Thanks, Cheryl. Title of my sermon today is Know Your Worth and Then Add Tax. I was reflecting recently on how incredibly blessed I am as a human being. I mean, along the many things that I could name, obviously one of them is being pastor of this great church. And another one right up there is the fact that I am a grandmother, which I know is hard to believe with this young and tender age standing here in the pulpit before you, but yes, it is true. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren, 2 grandsons and a granddaughter, and today I want to tell you a little story about the granddaughter. Madison is now 7. You know, fully grown, honey. But when she was younger, about 3 or 4, all she would do all day long is walk around the house with this sparkly tiara. She'd sleep in it, she'd eat in it, never would take that thing off, and it was so fun. I mean, she would take it off for maybe a bath, but it was really fun to watch her in that moment when she put it back on, because the moment it went on her head, she just kind of stood a little taller. She carried herself just a tiny bit differently, and she even had this look in her eye like she knew deep down she was royalty. Granted, it's not always the best idea to add attitude to a 3-year-old, but even so, it was a thing to see. And, I don't know, kind of a thing to ponder. I've often wondered what it was about that tiara that made her believe just a little more in her greatness. I mean, part of it was probably the 10 trillion Disney movies that she watched. Part of it, I think, was that the tiara was sparkly. But maybe, just maybe, it had to do with a yearning that is buried in all of us to wear a crown, to know our greatness. Now, Lord knows every gift store and Hallmark store in America knows about that. You walk into any of these stores and there'll be all kind of things with sayings all over them like "Queen for a day," or "You rule," or "You are awesome," right? I see Richard nodding his head. Recently, when I was at our cabin up in Wisconsin, I went to a little gift shop in our tiny town, and of course, I fell victim to the gifts with the messages that I just described. Anything that's uplifting, I'm gonna buy, right? And one of them is a little to-do list, and it says, "Self-discipline is tough because I'm the boss of me, and that lady runs a real loose ship." Right? So anybody want to borrow this? You're welcome to it. But my favorite, and I am a sucker for tiny little bags. I don't know, anybody else, like just a little bag to put stuff in? I can't really explain it, but I found this little tiny bag that zips and it says, "Know your worth and then add tax." And I thought, there it is, right there. That is life's goal number 1 for all of us. Because no matter where we come from, no matter our race, our ethnicity, our gender, our age, our body shape, our abilities, we must know our worth and then add tax. Not if, not when, but now, right now, as we are. Of course, that's not so easy to do in our current world. We are bombarded by messages that tear down our worth, tear down our value, that cloud our ability to believe in our greatness. And while I could certainly stand up here and rehash some of those messages or give you a rundown of the headlines, I do not believe that those corrosive words have any place in our worship today. I am not going to give them 1 second of our time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying disengage from the evils of the world, because there's a fight to be had for justice. There's a fight to be had for the equality of all God's children. But before we fight the battle out there, We have to win the battle in here. Let me say that one more time. Before we fight the battle out there, we've got to win the battle in here, in our hearts. We have to find a way to remember our worth, and say it with me, then add tax. Let's take a quick lesson from Madeline's tiara. First, it was inspired by stories. Like the Disney films she loved to watch, Brave, Frozen, Moana, all of which offered a bold vision of what young girls could be. Fearless and powerful and proud. Friends, we all need those kinds of messages. Messages of what we can be, as opposed to the messages we get from the world of what we can't be. I mean, we've all felt the sting of the world's judgment. From the headlines to judicial rulings to language and messaging and marketing to damaging personal words from strangers, even friends or family. So the first thing we must do is surround ourselves with voices that lift us up. We've got to create our own safe space, physical, emotional, spiritual, where we can remember who we are. This church is a safe space. And everyone here is welcome as family. And if you're coming in live stream, you're looking for a safe space because you don't have one, we're available. And you can make this your home. The second reason that tiara worked was because it was sparkly. It was sparkly and it was fun and it was festive. You know, we live in a time that is the absolute polar opposite than sparkly, than festive, than fun. We live in a time that is dim, that is scary, that is full of sadness. And one of the quickest ways to remember our worth in this time of dim sadness is to do something kind for yourself. Do something fun, do something festive. This week I was over at CVS. You've probably been there right here on 5th Avenue up near 34th Street. And I was standing in line, and there was this woman in front of me who just kind of exuded some serious negative vibe, right? And so I just stayed away, waited through the line, and she got up to the counter, and she ordered a balloon. And the woman behind the counter said, "Oh, is it somebody's birthday?" And the woman said, "No, I'm just having a bad day." I just loved that. You know, sometimes you just need to remind yourself that in the midst of the world's cruelty, you are worth celebrating. Now, I said earlier about a yearning inside for wearing a crown, and I think that's the third reason that tiara may be important and may be the reason it worked. And this is the most important thing I hope you'll take away from today. There is a yearning buried in all of us to wear a crown, because that crown taps into something much deeper. I don't mean a literal crown, although maybe you do. It taps a longing in each of us to return to our truest self, to the self that God sees, the self that was created in love and crowned with purpose. When we find the presence of God in ourselves, that's when we find our tiara. That's when we stand a little taller. That's when we walk and present ourselves a little differently. That's when we get a look in our eye that shows deep down that we know we are loved as holy, even royal, children of God. Our psalm that Cheryl read for us this morning says exactly that, and I want to pull two lines from it that I think just hit everyone. I can only say for myself, it hits me, but I think it hits most people in the solar plexus. Travis and I put together a graphic. I would like you to show it, Travis. Look to the Lord and be radiant, so your faces shall never be ashamed. We made this graphic so If you're watching live stream or sitting here, you want to take a screenshot of it, do that. The quote is in the bulletin. It's on the website. Take those words with you. Read them every day. Look to the Lord and be radiant, so your faces shall never be ashamed. That is the source of our hope. That is the source of our joy. You've got to find a way to ground yourself in what never changes. So create a safe space for yourself. Be kind to yourself. And remember your holy ancestry as a child of God. Just find your worth. And then add tax. For as the great theologian Howard Thurman wrote, God has placed a crown above your head so that you will spend your life growing tall enough to wear it. And the people said, amen.